Hello fellow racers and welcome to this video where we're gonna be going through some little tips and basic setup workaround in Assetto Corsa Competizione. I would like to give you my tips, what I'm actually doing with the cars, what I'm actually doing as a setups, like the little basics, guys. We're not gonna go through something complicated. We're gonna go for basically newcomers into the Assetto Corsa who don't know what to do and they would like to improve their driving a little bit. So basically I'm gonna just try to give you some little of mine tips, what I'm like usually doing, for example, when we do community races or when we do league races. So when I just jump on a racetrack and what I change on the car to change everything I need. We will not go through everything because some of the things like dampeners, for example, are very complicated, and you also need to use a Motec in Assetto Corsa Competizione to work it properly. So maybe in like a next video, for example, we can invite Darking and he can explain the Motec because he really understands it more than I do. I absolutely have no clue about it. And yeah. So we will just go through the basics. There's gonna be a lot of cuts in the video, guys, so apology for that because I want to make it simple and nice. I'm not gonna go in a super technical words or stuff, guys. I'm gonna just tell you how I understand it myself and what I actually change and why do I do it. And maybe like I will try to do some explanation like over it or over the video and such. So easily to say it, I'm gonna just jump on a track with an aggressive default setup. I'm gonna do a lap to understand what the car is doing, and then we're gonna try to change some values to make the car behave as I want it to. And I will try to explain why I did it and what is it for you and why you should try as well, and give you little tips how to work in this game overall. And I would like to start like a little series of the videos where we will go back to explaining the track guides, to the setups, to maybe strategy tips, pit stops tips, and whatsoever, guys. So hopefully it's gonna be good. So buckle up and let's go. Let's do this, guys. Basically my first weapon of choice, guys. I didn't know which car and track to take, so I took, we're gonna take aggressive default setup for Lexus 2019 on a Kyalami. And the only thing I'm gonna just change is the fuel value. I'm gonna go for like 15 liters. We're gonna use 1-1 brake pads because I'm gonna explain the brakes a little later, hopefully. And we're gonna just drive. I will probably skip most of the parts, but we will just jump on the track. I will basically what I do, guys, when I start setuping my car. 99% of the time, I just take aggressive preset, lower the fuel, take brake pads 1 because they are for a short race or qualification, and I just jump on the track, do like 1-2 laps, and I just like see what the car is doing, you know, because like I can already go up on the little pace and get up the speed, so I can immediately like see what the car is doing, if it's understeering, oversteering, like the basic things, guys, on a car, because some drivers, they prefer understeering car. For example, I really prefer oversteering car, and we will talk about it a little later, but hopefully it's gonna be okay. Hopefully I will explain it correctly, guys, and let's see. Let's go with this puppy. Guys, if there's gonna be some misunderstanding, I will not explain it probably. Guys, don't take my word for everything. I don't think I will say everything correctly, so please don't be negative about it or stuff like that. I will try to just explain how I understand it. It might be wrong, but in the end it's gonna be maybe correct, so we can understand correctly. And maybe in the comments you will get some more tips from other people, but we will work on this series to explain everything so we can work with the Assetto Corsa Competizione all together, guys. So just jump on the track and see what we can do. So basically, like for me, Kyalami is like a very good example because this track is, first of all, you have to have good car on acceleration and very good car in faster corners, because there's like 3-4 corners which carries a bit higher speed where you need a good exit. For example, this one here, right-hander. So you have to have a very good car which is like not understeering but also doesn't unsettle too much. You also need to care about the tire pressures. Just a very fast tip, guys. In Assetto Corsa Competizione, in a dry conditions, your tire pressures aim, let's say basically after like third lap of the race, second, third lap of the race until the finish, your ideal tire pressures should be between 27.5 until 28. Maybe if it's very, very hot, you can go a little bit lower or higher. It really depends on how long the race is. If the track is wet, like literally wet, or you have a wet tire set because the tires are softer, you want to aim on like 30.5, 30, you know, that's like ideal tire pressure. But of course in this game, all different conditions are making different results, so you have to worry about it a lot, you know, and be careful about it. Because also like not the only pressure, but also temperature is very important. So basically what I can feel already on a car, it's a bit understeery, seems, in the slow corners. Okay, a bit of understeer in the fast corners as well. Especially on the throttle even, it looks like. So we can work on that. So the car, like, the aggressive default actually for this track is not that bad for Lexus. But I can notice that the car is a bit understeering. It's like lazy into the corners. Especially on the throttle, as you can see, the car just doesn't want to steer too much. So we can do a little tips or the little adjustments. We can also lower the TC and such, but it's not that important right now. We can see the tire pressures are a bit higher on the left front. If you're wondering, guys, I'm driving in a free practice, so that's why the track is not at all exactly perfect conditions. Understeer here as well. Let's see the second to last corner. This one is very important because you don't want to understeer in this corner. A little bit. So basically the tire pressures, I can even tell, are okay for quali. The rear might be should be a little higher, like 2/10. But the front is okay. The right front is a bit overheating, but it's a bit okay. But it's not that bad. For quali it's good because in quali you actually want the pressures to be higher because you want to get until ideal tire pressure immediately, you know, for your hot lap immediately, not in the 4th or 5th lap, you know, immediately. Okay, so basically what we found out right away was the car was a bit understeery, and you can see the tire pressures are actually not ideal. So basically what I want is to lower the front a little bit. The rear I want to actually add on the right 2 clicks, maybe even like 2 clicks on the left and 3 clicks on the right, but I think it's okay. About the settings, basically, if I'd like to explain it, guys, it might be. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not a teacher, so I would like. Might be complicated. Might be a very long video. We'll see. So basically, the tire pressures, the first #1 thing in this game, is the most important, because in this game, if you do a longer race, if you have wrong tire pressures, in wet or in dry, you destroy the tires faster, and you basically can already like give up because you can lose 2 seconds per pace just because of the wrong tire pressures. So you have to count with everything. It depends what is the temperature on the track as well. Right now we can see it's 37 degrees. That means it's very hot, or could be hotter, but it's very hot. You have to notice because each session in a race or quali and whatever the server settings is, it can be in a different condition. So basically right now we can swap to quali and it can be like 22 degrees, you know. So basically you have to understand how much you want to add of tire pressures. I would say this, I think it's just come with experience in this game, because Assetto Corsa is very rewarding when you actually play the game a lot, so you understand like, okay, it's 10 degrees difference, so I can go 7 clicks, for example, higher on a tire pressure, you know, because it's like 7 degrees different or 8 degrees different. Let's say that way. Then on the tires, especially for race, inequality is not that important, I would say. But in a race, you have the OMI, or OMI, I call it. These numbers, as Dal can explain to me, basically inside and outside tire, you don't want to have a big difference. If it's like 8 or 10 difference between this number and this number, that's very bad. So you're running like way big camber, which is like totally destroying the tires. So you can basically see right now, I would say, it's not bad. I can actually, like, on the right side, because the track is to the left, the right side there's a 5 difference, which is okay. So that's still good. That still works, because if we lower it, we lose a little bit of traction, a little bit of grip, but it's still good. The rear seems to be basically almost perfect, so we can keep it right now on this. About the toe toes in and toes out. Basically on the front you usually have the minus number. You have like negative camber, because if you look from the top of the car, you have tires like this. It's because you just want to have stability and everything when you brake, you know, and into the corners. And on the rear you have a opposite one. So that's basically how to get a more traction. It's basically like by little like logic. The higher the number on the front, the more steering and more stability you will have. But also you have to have in mind that your tires will definitely die way faster, and you can make the car way too much oversteer, which will not be very good. So basically on the plus side, on the rear, you will also gain a bit of more stability, also more turn in. But it's not always the case. It really depends like all over the car, the settings, how it is. So I like actually this page right now. I kind of like how the car is working. The temperatures and everything were correct for the session. We can skip the electronics. Basically, it depends how you're gentle with the braking. I would say ABS on basically most of the cars. ABS 3 or 4 for the dry race is okay. TC really depends on the car. I think on Lexus I can go on 2 because it feels very good, and the session is dry right now, so I can go on a free ABS as well. During the race, you can actually save the tires very well if you go for higher TCs at the beginning, for example, or later in the race. When I did, for example, some endurance races, I went for the free traction control because the car was a bit more stable on the exits. I wasn't wheel spinning too much, and you can save like a great deal of tires for the longer race. Fuel strategy is basically simple. About the brakes, there is a great deal of talking about the braking and everything, guys. I'm sorry, I'm skipping all the parts going up and down, guys. So I'm sorry if you are bored or if you doesn't like it. It's just how I work right now. So skipping from stuff. Of course, a lot of people are asking and questioning the brake pads, how to use them or what to use. After using the brake pads wrong for about 2 months. I can tell you that I finally understand it, and I know how to use them. I explain it in every stream and every race. Brake pads number 1, you want to use for quali and let's say maximum of 90-minute race. I would recommend it for 1 hour race, but 90-minute race is also possible. Don't use them for 2-hour race because on some tracks your brakes will fail. Brake pads number 2, you can use up to, let's say, 12 hours, maybe 16-hour race in the dry conditions. Brake pads number 3 are for 24-hour race and wet conditions. And brake pads number 4, never use them because some people thought they are for quali and such. They are not for quali. They are basically to simulate how your brake pads will be working after they are very, you know, like very used. So they basically, if you use them in quali in a first out lap, you will be like, wow, this is very good. They are okay, but they're like super overheated. They are really wear, and they fail in like 15 or 20 minutes if you put them in a race. So I never use them because it's just nonsense to use them. It's just you can simulate how the brakes will feel after like 12 hours, you know, for example. It's not important to use them. So I hope it's okay. So basically for 99% of the races, you'll be using brake pads 1 and brake pads number 2 for, let's say, 90-minute race, 2-hour race, 3-hour race, 12-hour race, something like that. Piston strategy is simple. Mechanical grip, I will not go through everything, guys, but as I said, so basically my car was a bit understeering. And first thing you basically want to do is you can change anti-roll bars, of course. You can change to different values. So basically, right now, if I would like to have more turn in, I would raise the rear anti-roll bar because it would give me a little bit more stability and also more turn in. But what I actually started using right now in this game, like on a default, guys, I'm like talking like, I'm not doing like a hardcore setup right now. I'm just doing little basic tip. That really works for me is the bump stop ranges. So basically, like if you have this yellow and red line, the ideal line to have the stability for the car in this game, as explained, is the closer the yellow is basically to red, the better stability you will have. But it's basically like you have a normal suspension travel, and then you have the bump stop gap, basically the range, you know, which you can bump into the maximum. Simply explained, if you go for a higher value, you can see the bump stop range will be like, you will have a Hummer from your car, let's say it that way. You will have a big suspension travel, but this will give you more turn in. That doesn't mean you should go for numbers like 26 or something like that. If you are having a bit of understeer, for example, great track for it is Silverstone. If you go to Stove Corner, you will notice a lot of understeer in some of the cars. If you go to bump stop range, like for example 2 or 3, that's like ideal number, you will have a bit more suspension travel, so the car will like pitch more into the corner. It will give you more steering, you know. Of course, it will unstable the car a bit more, but recently for me, it works very well. So it's just basic numbers, guys. It's like basic stuff. So this, like the bump stop range for me is like a number 1 for quali to work with, because it's very, very simple. It's like a very simple trick, let's say, to get the car steer a little bit more if you don't want to worry about the rest of the setup too much, you know. So basically, like you could see, like on the car was number 1, which is like a decent for the race and such. But for the quali, I want to get a little bit more turn in. So I will, for example, go for like value 2 or 3. We will see that how the big difference it will be without changing the rest of the suspension, basically, without touching anything yet. Of course, there you want to also change the suspension, guys. The harder car you have, of course, the less mechanical grip you will get, but also the more downforce and everything will work all together. So for me, like the most values I use on the cars is like I harden the rear suspension, which basically means the car will be sliding a bit too more. I'm basically forcing car to oversteer a little bit more, because if I would go like for very soft values, I will create hammer, of course, from the car, but there will be a lot of suspension work, and the car will work with the suspension so good, I will have a lot of mechanical grip. It's basically, if you want to go, like, if you want to make your setup for wet weather conditions, you want to have as much as possible mechanical grip as you can get, you know. But there's like, usually I work with the suspension, like I usually go for a little softer front and harder rear. It really depends on the conditions and everything, but in dry conditions, I usually go like that. I'm not saying like this number is going to be correct or something. We can go, for example, soften the front and keep the rear. If I like the rear, how it behaves, you know. It gives me a little bit more turn in, because as I said, my driving style is like oversteer a car. So I'm basically trying to adapt the car for oversteer as it is. That's like the thing I'm going for. I'm gonna actually try with the other way, if it's gonna improve a little bit. As I said, I could improve the anti-roll bar. I'm not sure if I want to do it like all together. If you have a time, I would say in Assetto Corsa it's all like test and try, you know, with the settings. Of course, you can for the more experienced or more smart people, you can use Motec, which is working perfect with this game. And if you can read the Motec, you can basically set up your 90% of your car in the Motec to be perfect. But of course, it's still game, so there's still some values you can change differently. But this is just how it works for me. So yeah. Then very important thing as well for me, except of course the anti-roll bar, basically the higher number on the front gives you more understeer, but also more stability. And on the rear is like opposite, basically. The lower you have, like for example, if I have a lot of hairpins, I want to have the rear anti-roll bar lower than the front. But if I want more turn in, I'll go for a higher number. I'm not saying like everything is correct, guys. You have to like work with everything together. And then very important thing actually in Assetto Corsa is the preload differential. I can't exactly explain like how in a smart way it works, but I would simply say the lower number, you get more oversteer on the throttle, more turn in on the throttle. It means like I'm going into the corner of the throttle, and as soon as I hit the throttle, I will get more steering angle or more steering into the car, and it's gonna be better for me, you know. So you have to create a good balance. If you go on the opposite, if you go for a higher number, don't go like extra numbers, of course. There's like, you go for 20 lower, 20 higher, nothing crazy. If you go for a higher number, you get more oversteer off the throttle. You know, for everybody has the different driving style. So if you have like an understeer car, but you want to have it safe, you just go for a little bit higher preload differential, and therefore the car will be a bit more oversteery on the entry of the throttle, you know, which, yeah, On some cars it's work, on some people it's good. It depends on the corners as well. It's nice to try a little like a good balance, you know, for these things. Usually I go like somewhere in the middle, like depends on the car, of course. Dampers I'm gonna skip because it's very no way you can there's no way you can set up the dampers without having a Motec, you know. So it's like you can do some numbers, you can improve the car, but in the end, if you don't use the Motec in the game, I absolutely don't use the Motec, so I have Darking for that. For some of the setups, so there's no chance you can set it correctly, you know, without the knowledge of the Motec. So we can skip that because it's not even important if you are using like a I'm not talking about doing a world record lap time right now, guys. I'm just talking about getting a little bit more confident in a car overall. Then of course we have Aero. I would say the Aero for me is probably the most important thing right now, because I found out there is a lot of gaps or a lot of things you can actually gain in the Aero. Right now on the Lexus, I don't have experience with the Lexus too much, so I don't know exactly how it all works. But we can start with the ride height, which is like mega important in this game, guys. I never used it before, I didn't understand it too much. I would say it's, again, it's try and drive. So basically we set up the rest of the car, or we just, for example, we haven't touched anything on a car yet, and we just want to play with the Aero. The ride height is mega important, guys. First of all, if you go in the rain, of course, you want to have the car higher. But also, if you have a, like, for example, bumpy track, like Laguna Seca or Misano, you want to use a little bit higher car, so you don't bottom out, you know? Or in Solder, for example, where you really go high. So in a Solder, you basically want to go for, like, higher suspension, higher height of the car overall. But it's not only for that, you can also make the car turn more or turn less. So, for example, if on some of the setups or after some of the changes on a setup, you will notice that you go, for example, into the very fast corner of the throttle and your car starts oversteering like crazy. Basically, you can fix that very simply with lowering the rear. Let's say like usually depends really of your setup. You can be 1, 2, maybe even 3 clicks. You will get a little bit more understeer, but the car will gain a bit more stability because you will use the diffuser differently. It's going to be closer to the ground, and there's going to be more downforce into the car, you know. Same basically for the height on the front, you know. If you want to go you're going to go for a lower front, you're going to get more aero on the front because the car is going to be lower. You're going to get more aero pitch, and basically you will get more turn in into the. It's very nice to play with this. I feel like the default values in a game are okay, but for example, Audi on Solder, I had to high up the car like 70 millimeters overall to make the car work correctly, you know. So it's very important to work with that, play with that, and you will find out that you can, for example, have some crazy oversteer setup, which is actually very good, but you will just lower the rear or front or both. Of course, it's very good to watch the front aero variation in the middle, and you will gain so much in that. So yeah, that's basically that. Of course, you have a wing. I recently found out, guys, I have been playing this game every single time, every setup. If you watch my first half a year of playing Assetto Corsa, I always lower the wing a lot, always. I found out in the past 2 months it's not the smartest idea. I actually started using a higher wing on some of the cars and making the rotation and everything by the suspension and by the ride height overall, because the aero is very important in this game. Of course, if you go to Monza, if you go to Spa, you want to go as lower as possible and then work with the mechanical grip. But on tracks like Kyalami, you don't need that too much. Then, of course, you have a brake ducts. Simply explaining about the brake ducts. Recently, also another discovery, guys. After a recent update 1.14 in the game, which was released like a month and a half ago, there is a more tire wear on the tires, and you want to save the tires as much as possible. Let's say it's simply for the quality, if it's dry and not like 45 degrees, you want to go for values around 3 on the front, 2 on the rear. It's okay. Also, like if you go higher number, the less downforce or less top speed you will basically get, and less heat into the brakes, which can result like a little bit less braking, but in the end it works very good. So for quali basically you want to go lower, you can even go like 2.2, it really depends on the conditions. I think the lower values really is like 10 degrees of Celsius, you can go even for lower, but you will probably overheat the brakes. For the race, I actually recently started using opposite. Like usually I was going for, let's say, 4-3 conditions, but right now I basically started going like 5 on the rear, 4 on the front if I'm doing like a long race, if I'm doing 1 hour without a pit stop and it's hot, it's like 38 degrees. Because therefore I'm gonna keep the temperature of the rear tires a bit lower because there's gonna be more airflow and it's gonna help me a little bit more to save the tires. I'm not saying it's like 50% or something else, it might be 5% or something like that in the tires, but it's very important, works very well. And I noticed a lot of people in SRO eSport, they are using that as well. They are even going like for maximum on the rear and like 3 on the front because because after recent updates, like you have an oversteer car, when the tires go down, the car gets mega oversteer as well, and you just want to keep the tires safe, you know. So basically, something like this can work. I totally changed from all the subjects, and we basically explain right now. If you have any question, you can leave it in the comments, guys, but let's go and see if our changes actually work on the car. I totally forgot what was the values here. I thought it was like 55. We're gonna keep it like it is. I'm gonna just go 3-2 brake ducts. We changed the bump stop range just a little bit. We kept the anti-roll bar right now. I would go like maybe like 6 and like 3 on a car right now. You can also notice the rear bump stop range is way high up. I think after recent update is very high up. I would actually go a little bit lower because you can see there's nothing, absolutely nothing on the Lexus actually. Wow. Okay, this is surprising. There's nothing on Lexus. Okay, I can't tell you on this car, but usually on other cars, if you go from 50, let's say, to 30, this red thing will go down towards the yellow. You don't want to have it too close because otherwise the car will bump up too much. But let's say from 50 you can go at 45, so something like that, you know, just a little bit lower, you know, so you don't have that much suspension travel there for nothing, you know. We can go back on a racetrack and just check it out if everything is working correctly. So let's see, let's do outlap and let's check if the car is behaving a little better or we can notice immediately. I love the sound of Lexus, don't you guys? I think this video is gonna be like super complicated, guys, and I'm really apologizing if it's very bad. I'm really sorry for that. I don't know if you noticed, but you can notice that my car is more turning, way more turning, is more sensitive on the steering as well. See, a little bit more oversteer on the entry. On the throttle, it's still good because we didn't change the values, we changed the rest. So we didn't have to play with that. So you can basically immediately change the difference or see the difference. From the aggressive preset, you can see there is more oversteer in the car, more turn-in, way more turn-in, like let's say 5 to 10%. So basically just the simple few clicks actually gave me more oversteer. Which is exactly what I was aiming for, guys. That was a horrible apex, sorry for that. I'm gonna lower the rear brakes as well because the brakes are way too in the front, so we're gonna lower a little bit. Did you notice the mid corner right now? Like way more turn in, way more oversteer. It really depends on your driving style, you know. Like I'm gonna actually go higher on ABS a little bit. I feel like the car was a bit snappy on the braking. You can see in the middle of the corner, the car gets a bit more turn in now. That's exactly what I was aiming for. The setup still needs a lot of work, but I feel like the default right now can a little bit work. I still need a bit more turn in this corner. I can be very aggressive on the braking because the car is really nice on the brakes. See, I don't have unnecessary understeer in this place. I think I can lower the car a bit more. I feel the front is way too high, as well the rear. So we can work on that. But I think the basics right now is working very nice. You can still notice the tire pressures on the front are still way higher. So we can still work on that for the quali. But it's working beautifully. See, the lap time is way better. Still a lot of time to improve. Racing line and everything, the brakings. Nice, aggressively. The lap times could be way better, but I feel like you get the point, guys. We can see on the front, like, okay, so right now, if you freeze the image, oh, we can't like this. Okay, if you would freeze the image right now, you can see that the both front tires are way too high, so we need to lower by about half camber, half tire pressure, and the tires are overheating on the front because the track is 38 degrees. So basically, ideally, for one lap it works. For one lap it's okay, but I would lower the front like about this. It's like an ideal number, and we can maybe for the quali I would run a bit higher brake deck on the front, like 4-3. So I would save the car overall. You know, it would improve a lot. So I hope you guys, some of the tips were actually helpful. I would like to say that I'm gonna do more of these videos, guys, because of course, like, I just jibber jabber for like 20 minutes, and I don't know if I said everything correctly, so I might made some mistakes and such. So we'll try to work on that, and I'm gonna try to make a little series of the videos for the tips for the setups for ACC and other games as well, and some tips for overall how to do a strategy, how to do that and that and that during the race. And yeah, that's guys how it's gonna work. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if this is actually helpful, or was it helpful, or if I should explain something more precisely or focus on some area. So thank you so much, guys, and let me know if this helps. Bye bye.